The market never rewards impatience. It only collects from it. Everyone's obsessed with analysis, with strategy, with finding the next best setup. But nobody talks about the real killer: execution. The moment that decides everything. That small window between your plan and your click. That's where traders are made or destroyed. You can study charts for hours, you can draw zones, spot liquidity traps, mark order blocks. But when it's time to execute, your hand hesitates, your mind shakes, and everything you knew evaporates. That's the moment where analysis dies and precision begins. Most traders think success is built in the preparation. It's not. It's built in the execution. The charts don't care about your confidence. The market doesn't care about your analysis. It cares about what you actually do when the price hits your level. You can't backtest courage. You can't rehearse conviction. Execution is raw. It's real. It's you versus yourself. That's why so many fail. Because they want perfection before they act. They keep tweaking, checking, confirming, reanalyzing, until the move's gone. And they tell themselves, next time I'll be ready. But there is no next time for the trader who can't pull the trigger. The market punishes hesitation the same way it punishes greed, silently, but permanently. Here's the uncomfortable truth: you can't think your way into consistency. You act your way into it. Every professional trader knows. Analysis gives you direction, but execution gives you profit. Analysis is planning for the storm. Execution is walking through it without losing balance. Think about it. Every big move you've ever missed. It wasn't because you didn't see it. It's because you didn't take it. Every loss that turned into disaster, it wasn't the setup's fault. It was your lack of control when you should have exited. Execution is the difference between being right and being rewarded. But why is it so hard to execute? Because the brain hates uncertainty. It wants confirmation. It wants comfort. It wants to feel sure. But trading doesn't give you that luxury. Execution happens in chaos. It requires you to act without knowing, to move while doubting, to decide without proof. And that's terrifying for the untrained mind. So what do most traders do? They hide behind more analysis. They convince themselves that more information will fix hesitation. They open more indicators, switch timeframes, ask in groups, wait for confirmation candles, until the edge is gone. They replace execution with obsession. And in the process, they kill their own momentum. Execution doesn't mean trading more. It means trading cleaner. It means you stop asking, is it right? And start asking, is it mine? You're not executing randomness. You're executing a plan that's already been tested, proven, and prepared. When you truly understand your system, execution becomes mechanical, not emotional. That's what pros do differently. They don't hesitate because they've already accepted the outcome. Win or lose, their job is to act precisely. Every click is a contract between logic and discipline. And when you execute that contract enough times, your results stop fluctuating with luck. They start reflecting your consistency. But let's be honest, execution is painful. Because it exposes you. It shows whether your process was real or just theory. Whether your discipline is genuine or just talk. Execution strips away illusion. It's the naked moment where you can't hide behind analysis anymore. It's just you, your plan, and your fear. That's why few can master it. You see, precision is not about being right, it's about being consistent under pressure. Every clean execution, even a losing one, builds internal trust. And that trust, that quiet self-belief, is the foundation of long-term profitability. When you stop questioning your ability to act, you finally start trading with flow. Execution isn't glamorous. It's silent repetition. It's the discipline to click exactly when your plan says so, not when your emotions beg you to. It's cutting the loser when your rule says cut, not when your ego says wait. It's taking profit when your plan says take, not when greed says little more. That's precision. That's mastery. That's the invisible skill that separates traders who make money from traders who just talk about it. The truth is, everyone can analyze. Few can execute. That's why you'll always see hundreds of analysts online, and only a handful of traders living off their craft. The difference isn't IQ, it's execution IQ, the ability to act with clarity when everyone else freezes in noise. You want to become profitable. Stop analyzing more. Start executing better. Don't try to predict the market. Predict your own reaction. Build a routine so sharp that your execution becomes instinct. Because that's what mastery feels like, effortless clarity built on repeated control. Execution is not a skill you learn once. It's a muscle you train daily. You'll still feel fear. You'll still feel doubt. But you'll act anyway. And that's what makes you a trader. So next time your plan aligns, don't hesitate. Don't seek perfection. Trust your edge. Click cleanly, exit cleanly, and repeat. Because at the end of every analysis, There's only one truth. You're paid not for what you see, but for what you do. That's the precision edge. The point where thinking ends and discipline begins. Flawless execution is not built in the moment. It's trained in silence. Most traders think execution is a button click. It's not. It's a behavior pattern built long before the trade even appears. The second you sit at your desk, your preparation decides your precision. The market doesn't test your analysis. It tests your readiness. And most traders fail before the trade even starts, because they never train their mind to act without emotion. They analyze all day, predict all night, but when the moment to execute arrives, they freeze, they hesitate, they overthink, and in that 1 second of hesitation, they lose their edge. Execution isn't about clicking fast, it's about acting with absolute clarity. It's the ability to trust your process so completely that there's no debate when the signal comes. That's why pros look calm, because they already decided what they'll do before price even moves. The amateurs decide while it's moving, and by then, it's too late. True execution begins long before the trade. It begins in your habits. Every checklist you ignore, every plan you skip, every setup you take, just because it looks good, all of it weakens your execution muscle. You can't expect surgical precision in chaos if you practice carelessness in calm. Precision comes from ritual. Professionals have one. They wake up, review their levels, set alerts, define risk, visualize entries. By the time they're ready, their actions are automated. The amateurs wake up, open the chart, and chase emotion. Execution is never random, it's rehearsed. Every elite trader treats execution like an athlete treats performance. You don't see a fighter thinking mid-punch, his body just reacts because he trained that move 1,000 times. In trading, that's what precision means. You build repetition until hesitation dies. Every rule you repeat becomes a reflex. Every clean entry builds trust. Every clean stop loss builds power. The real skill is not spotting opportunity. It's acting perfectly when it arrives. Because when emotion enters, precision leaves. The human brain is wired to avoid pain and chase pleasure. And in trading, that wiring kills you. Fear delays action, greed accelerates it. Both destroy timing. The market punishes both. So the only way to win is to train yourself out of emotion through execution routines. That's why pros journal. That's why they record trades. That's why they study their reactions more than their charts. Because execution is not just about performance. It's about self-awareness. You can't fix your chart until you fix your trigger finger. And every hesitation tells a story: fear of loss, lack of confidence, attachment to outcome. Precision comes when you replace those emotions with systems. Systems don't feel, they just execute. That's why rule-based traders dominate emotion-based ones. The more structure you have, the less pressure you feel. The less pressure you feel, the cleaner your execution becomes. Execution also demands detachment. You can't be emotionally attached to your analysis and still execute objectively. Once you decide the trade, your job is to follow through, not to second guess. The amateurs keep editing their decision mid-trade. They move stops, shift targets, redraw lines. They ruin precision with insecurity. Pros don't do that. Once they commit, they execute. Win or lose, they let the data speak. That's what gives them confidence, not results but consistency. Every trade becomes feedback. Every execution becomes data. Over time, this repetition compounds into mastery. You stop needing confidence. You become confidence. You stop hoping. You start knowing. That's the execution edge. It's invisible to the crowd, but it's everything to the professional. Think of it like this: analysis gives you the map, but execution is the driving skill. Everyone has the same map, support, resistance, patterns, but not everyone can drive smoothly under pressure. That's why two traders can look at the same setup. One profits, the other loses. Same chart, different execution. Precision is the gap between knowing and doing. And the only way to close that gap is through repetition and reflection. Execution mastery is built by tracking behavior, not price. When you journal trades, don't just write entry and exit. Write your state. What did you feel when you entered? What did you fear when price reversed? What thought made you exit early? That's how you find execution flaws, not by changing your system, but by understanding yourself. Once you see your behavioral patterns, you can design systems to counter them. Fear of loss. Automate stops, impulsive entries, add waiting conditions, lack of focus, trade fewer pairs. That's how execution evolves, one behavioral fix at a time. The more mechanical your execution becomes, the more freedom your mind gains. Because now, you're no longer fighting emotion, you're managing process. That's where trading becomes peaceful. When every action is intentional, every trade feels light. You stop feeling desperate because you know exactly why you entered, why you exited, and why you walked away. That's execution freedom, clarity without confusion. Most traders chase that state for years, but they never realize it's built in silence. It's not built during trading, it's built before and after trading. When you prepare, when you review, when you reflect, that's where precision grows. Every day you execute cleanly, even on a losing trade, you're compounding trust in yourself. And trust is the ultimate edge. When you trust your plan, the market loses its power to shake you. That's why pros can sit through drawdown without panic, because their execution is stronger than their emotion. They know their job is not to control outcome, only to control behavior. That's what execution mastery really means, control. The amateurs want profit, the pros want precision. And the funny part, precision eventually brings profit. So if you want to master trading, stop obsessing over analysis. Build execution systems, train reactions, track emotions. Repeat discipline. Because the difference between a good trader and a great one isn't strategy. It's execution under pressure. That's the edge that never fades. It's the reason one trader survives every storm while another blows up on the first gust. The market doesn't pay you for being smart, it pays you for acting right, at the right time, without hesitation. That's execution, clean, calm, consistent. And until you master that, no amount of analysis will ever save you. There's a moment every trader faces. That razor-thin space between thought and action, between analysis and execution. The chart is clean, the levels align, everything looks perfect. You've been waiting patiently, studying every candle, whispering to yourself, this is it. But as your finger hovers over the mouse, something happens. The calm confidence that filled your mind begins to fade. A tiny tremor hits your hand. Your pulse quickens. Suddenly, you're not fighting the market anymore. You're fighting yourself. That's the real battlefield. The execution moment isn't about your analysis or your indicator. It's about your ability to control your inner storm when everything is on the line. Because the second you decide to click, every hidden emotion, fear, greed, hesitation, doubt, wakes up and demands attention. And if you don't master them, they'll master you. That's why traders spend years learning charts, yet still lose when it's time to act. Knowledge is easy. Execution is war. You can spend hours drawing lines and predicting movements, but the market doesn't test your prediction. It tests your precision. Execution isn't about knowing what will happen next. It's about knowing exactly what you'll do when it does. That's the difference between amateurs who react and professionals who execute. The amateurs chase setups because they look exciting. Professionals enter setups because their process says so. There's no emotion, no excitement, just structure, just control. Because in trading, emotion is noise and execution is signal. When you truly understand execution, you stop caring about being right. You start caring about being consistent. You stop chasing candles and you start aligning your state. You realize that the real market isn't outside you, it's inside you. Every flicker of hesitation is resistance. Every maybe is sabotage. Precision begins the moment your decision stops shaking. That's why elite traders have rituals. Before they trade, they check not just their charts, but their state of mind. They know if they enter with impatience, the market will expose it instantly. If they enter with greed, the market will punish it. But if they enter with clarity, with calm detachment, the market reflects that precision back to them. Execution is a mirror. It shows you exactly who you are in the moment of truth. When your setup appears and your heart starts to race, that's not excitement. That's instability. And instability destroys timing. The professional trader knows that timing is not about milliseconds. It's about mindset. Because even the perfect strategy collapses under an unstable mind. Execution begins long before you click. It begins in preparation, in the hours you spent designing your plan, setting your rules, accepting your risk. Every click is the final step in a long chain of discipline. But most traders skip the first steps and wonder why the last one fails. They enter trades based on impulse, not intention. They click because it feels right, not because it is right, and that's the difference between gambling and mastery. A professional trader doesn't trade. They know it fits the plan. Their job isn't to predict the future. It's to align with probability. That's why execution, not analysis, is the highest skill. Anyone can draw a support zone. Few can act with courage and calmness when price tests it, because that's when the real test begins. Not on the chart, but in the mind. The moment the candle spikes, your body floods with emotion. Fear tells you to skip, greed tells you to chase, ego tells you to prove yourself. But discipline whispers, follow your plan. That whisper is what separates traders who survive from those who self-destruct. In execution, the strongest weapon isn't your strategy, it's your state. That's why the best traders treat each entry like a ritual. Their breathing slows. Their mind stills. Their finger doesn't move until every condition aligns. edge, risk, and emotion. They don't chase confirmation, they become confirmation. They don't need excitement, they crave accuracy. And when they finally click, it's silent. There's no adrenaline, no chaos, no hope, just clarity. Because real execution feels calm, not thrilling. It's not a rush, it's a rhythm. It's the sound of alignment between plan and action. The more you master that alignment, the faster your results compound. Not because you win every trade, but because every trade becomes data, not drama. You no longer see losses as pain, you see them as part of the rhythm. You no longer crave wins, you crave perfection of process. That shift, from chasing outcomes to mastering execution, is what transforms a trader from reactive to professional. Every time you hesitate, remember this: the market doesn't care about your fear. It doesn't care about your ego. It only cares about your execution. You can't control where price goes, but you can control how you enter, how you manage, and how you exit. That's where consistency lives. The more precise your execution, the less emotional your results, because precision removes chaos. You stop being tossed around by random trades and start building predictable patterns. You begin to understand that the goal of execution isn't perfection, it's control. Control of risk, control of reaction, control of state. That's how professionals trade. They execute without hesitation, not because they're fearless, but because they've rehearsed that moment so many times that fear no longer fits into the equation. Think about it: every great trader, Livermore, Tudor Jones, Douglas, all mastered one thing above all: execution under pressure. They understood that your true edge doesn't appear when the setup is clear. It appears when the setup feels uncertain and you still execute according to plan. That's when trading becomes art. That's when emotion transforms into control. Because the market's chaos will always test your center. And execution is how you hold it. Most traders lose not because they don't know what to do, but because they don't do what they know. They break their rules. They chase their emotions. They sabotage their edge. But the professional knows. Discipline isn't built by winning trades, it's built by executing perfectly even when it hurts. And that's why real growth feels slow. Because mastery is repetition, not rush. You don't evolve by doing more. You evolve by doing it right. Execution is that sacred space where thought becomes action, where belief becomes behavior, where preparation meets proof. That's where the real trader is born, not in analysis, not in prediction, but in the quiet click of precision under pressure. Every trader begins by chasing results, but the ones who last evolve into chasing precision. Because something changes deep inside you once you start executing perfectly. You begin to see that trading isn't about the market moving your way. It's about you moving the right way within the market. Perfect execution doesn't just shape your trades, it rewires your psychology. At first, you think the goal is to find the perfect setup. Later, you realize the goal is to become the person who can execute it without fear. That shift, from controlling the chart to controlling yourself, is where real transformation begins. Every disciplined execution rewrites a piece of your trading DNA. Every moment you follow your plan, even when it hurts, you build emotional muscle. Because discipline is a form of rewiring. You're teaching your brain that restraint equals safety, not fear. You're training your nervous system to stay calm under pressure. That's why consistent execution feels slow at first. It's literally reprogramming your internal chemistry. The rush fades, the excitement disappears, and what replaces it is something more powerful: control. When you execute with precision, you stop treating trading as a gamble and start treating it as a craft. Your relationship with the market changes. You no longer chase candles, you read behavior. You no longer trade to prove yourself, you trade to test your process. That mental shift is everything, because every time you execute correctly, you reinforce trust, not in the market, but in yourself. And that trust compounds faster than capital ever will. The more you trust your execution, the calmer you become. The calmer you become, the clearer you see. The clearer you see, the better you execute. That's the feedback loop of mastery. Precision feeding psychology, and psychology feeding precision. The amateurs never reach this point because they're too focused on results. They think consistency comes from finding the next best setup. Professionals know consistency comes from becoming the next best version of yourself. Execution doesn't just build profit, it builds identity. Every perfect click tells your subconscious, I am disciplined. Every controlled exit tells your brain, I am patient. Over time, your identity changes. You stop trying to be disciplined, you become disciplined. You stop forcing patience, patience becomes your default. That's the unseen reward of execution. It doesn't just make you a better trader, it makes you a more stable human. Think about what happens to most traders after a few losses. They panic, their confidence collapses. They start questioning their strategy, their setup, even their worth. But a trader who has mastered execution reacts differently. They don't see losses as identity threats. They see them as data points. Because when your confidence comes from execution, not outcome, losses lose their emotional power. You no longer need a win to feel secure. You feel secure because you followed your plan. That's freedom. That's where emotional independence begins. Execution separates your self-worth from your P&L. It allows you to stand firm in the storm because your confidence is rooted in process, not performance. That's why the best traders seem emotionless. Not because they don't feel, but because they've trained their feelings to follow their rules, not their results. Their mind isn't chasing dopamine from wins, it's chasing precision in execution. And ironically, that's when results start to flow naturally. Because the chaos inside them is gone. When you start executing perfectly, you begin to experience flow, that quiet mental state where time slows, your focus sharpens, and everything aligns. It's not luck, it's psychological alignment. You're no longer distracted by outcome anxiety or noise. You see the chart for what it truly is, a reflection of human behavior, not a scoreboard of your ego. Execution discipline creates clarity, and clarity breeds performance. It's like tuning an instrument. When your process is consistent, your emotions fall in rhythm. You stop overthinking. You stop interfering with your trades. You start letting your edge play out naturally. That's what Douglas meant when he said, "The market is neutral. It's never against you. It's never for you. It just mirrors you. If you bring chaos, it gives chaos. If you bring precision, it gives precision." Execution is how you communicate with that mirror, with calm, not chaos, with order, not impulse. Every great trader eventually reaches a point where they realize this: your strategy can't outgrow your psychology. You can't execute precision with a restless mind. You can't manage risk with an undisciplined heart. That's why every perfect execution is an act of self-control, and every act of self-control expands your mental edge. Slowly, you stop needing motivation to stay consistent. You stop chasing trades for excitement. You start respecting boredom, because boredom means discipline. That's the paradox most never understand. The better you become, the less dramatic trading feels. The thrill disappears, but peace replaces it, and that peace is profitability in disguise. You're no longer in a rush to win. You're in rhythm with your process. You're no longer trying to conquer the market. You're mastering yourself within it. With time, that precision spills into everything else. You start living with the same discipline you trade with. You manage your mornings like you manage your trades, structured, intentional, calm. You plan your day with the same risk management mindset, minimizing chaos, maximizing focus. You begin to realize trading isn't something you do, it's something you become. The same habits that create precision on the chart create precision in life. You stop reacting emotionally to people, to stress, to setbacks. You become deliberate, measured, focused. That's the ultimate gift of execution. It turns traders into thinkers and thinkers into professionals. Because every time you choose execution over emotion, you prove to yourself that mastery isn't found in the market, it's built in the mind. Over time, your equity curve starts to reflect that inner calm. Drawdowns become shallow. Wins become steady. Growth becomes organic. That's when you realize the truth: precision doesn't just build profit, it builds peace. So if you want to transform your trading, stop trying to trade better. Start executing better. Don't aim for bigger profits, aim for cleaner behavior. Every perfect execution is a deposit into your psychological capital. Every disciplined action makes your next one easier. And soon trading stops feeling like a fight. It starts feeling like flow. Because once your execution becomes flawless, your performance follows naturally. The mind that once trembled before every trade now moves with calm conviction. The chaos that once drained your energy now fuels your focus. You've become precise, not just in charts, but in character. And that's when you finally understand profit is just a side effect. Precision is the cause. Every trader hits a wall. It doesn't matter how sharp your analysis is, how many books you've read, or how many setups you've memorized. There comes a moment where progress stops. You're not losing, but you're not growing either. You're stuck in the plateau. Your trades are decent, your risk is controlled, your results are average. But inside, something feels off. You know you're capable of more. You can sense a higher level just beyond reach. That's the silent phase where most traders quit, not because they fail, but because they stop evolving. They confuse consistency with completion. They think discipline is the finish line. But precision isn't the end. It's the beginning of compounding mastery. See, once you've learned to execute perfectly, the next step is to refine how you execute. Precision, like a muscle, strengthens through repetition. But mastery blooms through reflection. Every flawless execution is valuable, but every reviewed execution is transformative. The trader who studies not just outcomes but behaviors grows exponentially faster than the one who just celebrates wins. Because execution without reflection becomes mechanical, reflection turns it into mastery. That's how you break the plateau, by evolving from discipline to deliberate. Discipline keeps you consistent. Deliberation makes you intelligent. When you reach this stage, your psychology begins to mature in ways you never expected. You start noticing the subtleties between a good trade and a great one. Not in profit, but in presence. You become hyper-aware of your micro-emotions before every click, that 1% of hesitation, that faint heartbeat of greed, that subtle urge to interfere mid-trade. And when you catch those signals early, you evolve. Because precision at this level isn't about charts anymore. It's about awareness. It's about managing your internal environment as cleanly as your technical environment. You begin to realize that trading mastery is 80% emotional literacy, the ability to detect, interpret, and neutralize your own impulses before they hijack execution. That's why the traders who compound don't do it through massive wins. They do it through microscopic control. Every time they resist the urge to overtrade, every time they take the correct loss without flinching, every time they skip a trade that doesn't fit, they build invisible equity. It's called psychological capital, and that capital compounds faster than money ever will, because every act of control strengthens the same muscle that holds your entire career together. The ability to stay centered when chaos hits. Most traders drain that capital by reacting emotionally. Professionals preserve it through precision. Breaking the plateau is not about doing more. It's about refining what already works. The amateur tries to escape stagnation by switching strategies, chasing new indicators, or jumping to different markets. The professional knows the plateau isn't external, it's internal. The issue isn't the market, it's your mindset hitting its current limit of clarity. So instead of changing systems, they change themselves. They look closer. They ask better questions. Why did I hesitate here? Why did I exit too early? Why did I break my own rule? These are not mistakes, they're mirrors. And when you face them without ego, you unlock the next level of awareness. That's when progress starts compounding. Not because you found something new, but because you understood yourself deeper. Every professional trader has lived through this evolution. The first phase is survival. Cutting losses, managing emotions, learning discipline. The second is stability, executing consistently, following rules, protecting capital. But the third, the compounding phase, is about subtle mastery. It's where trading stops being mechanical and becomes almost spiritual. You start feeling the rhythm of the market, not predicting it, but flowing with it. Your reactions slow down. Your patience becomes instinct. Your process feels effortless, even though it's built on years of pain. And that's when your curve starts to bend. Slowly, quietly, but steadily upward. Not in a straight line, but in an exponential one. Because your growth isn't just technical anymore. It's psychological. Think about this: if every trade you take, every loss you control, every hesitation you overcome adds 1% more clarity to your execution, what happens after 1,000 trades? You've not only doubled your skill, you've multiplied your confidence. That's compounding. But most traders never get there because they want compounding without patience. They chase more trades instead of better trades. They confuse movement with progress. But compounding precision demands stillness. It requires a kind of quiet obsession, not with profit, but with perfection of process. When your focus shifts from, how much did I make, to, how well did I execute, your growth becomes inevitable, because the market eventually rewards those who stop forcing outcomes and start respecting process. Breaking the plateau also requires confronting your ego at a deeper level. Ego isn't always loud, sometimes it whispers. It tells you you're too good to follow the basics. It convinces you that one small rule won't matter. But every shortcut steals precision. Every compromise weakens clarity. And slowly, ego becomes the invisible ceiling holding you down. The only way through that ceiling is humility. The same humility you had when you started. The willingness to say, even though I'm consistent, I can still be cleaner. That humility is the engine of long-term growth. Because precision without humility becomes arrogance. And arrogance always precedes collapse. But humility keeps you learning. It keeps your edge sharp. It keeps your eyes open to micro-improvements others overlook. And here's the paradox: once you pass that ceiling, trading becomes almost peaceful. You stop feeling like you're fighting the market. You start feeling like you're communicating with it. You recognize patterns not just visually, but emotionally. You can feel tension before it breaks, exhaustion before it reverses. It's not mystical. It's pattern fluency born from thousands of hours of precise execution. You're no longer reacting, you're anticipating with calm confidence. That's the zone where performance compounds naturally. Each clean execution sharpens the next one. Each disciplined trade reinforces the next decision. You become what every new trader dreams of being, effortless in precision. But there's one more truth the plateau teaches. Mastery is maintenance. Once you break through, the challenge shifts from growth to preservation. Because success can dull sharpness. Comfort breeds carelessness. The same discipline that built your edge must now protect it. Every great trader guards their precision like a monk guards his silence. They know complacency is the final trap, the one that disguises itself as success. So they keep reviewing, refining, repeating. They stay a student of their own process even at the top. That's how compounding never stops, because learning never stops. Execution at this level becomes philosophy. It's no longer about entries and exits, it's about integrity. It's about doing the right thing even when no one's watching, even when the outcome is uncertain. That's why execution mastery doesn't just build traders, it builds character. You begin to carry that same calm precision into every part of life. Conversations, relationships, decisions, everything becomes intentional. You stop reacting emotionally to people the same way you stopped reacting to candles. You start listening more, waiting more, acting less, but with more accuracy. Trading becomes a mirror for maturity. You start realizing this game was never about money. It was about evolution. And that's the real reward of breaking the plateau. Not just financial growth, but psychological freedom. You no longer need validation from wins. You no longer seek revenge from losses. You operate with peace because your process defines your worth. That's when your trading account, and your life, start reflecting the same truth. Consistency is the natural outcome of inner stability. The plateau wasn't a punishment, it was a test of patience, humility, and awareness. And if you passed it, you didn't just level up your trading, you leveled up your mind. So when the market feels silent, when results stall, when nothing seems to move, don't panic. Don't switch systems. Don't force progress. Sit with the silence. Study your behavior. Recommit to execution, because the breakthrough always hides behind the boring. Precision is built in repetition, and repetition is what compounds into greatness. The plateau isn't the end. It's the foundation of your next curve. Most traders stop there. The great ones build from there, and when you break through, something magical happens. Profit stops being the goal. It becomes the echo of your process. The same setups you once feared now feel effortless. The same mistakes that haunted you now feel impossible. Your edge becomes invisible. It's who you are. You no longer trade with emotion, you trade with identity. That's the highest level of mastery, when execution and psychology merge into one seamless flow. No resistance, no hesitation, just presence, precision, and peace. That's when you realize the market never rewards impatience, but it endlessly compounds precision. There comes a point in every trader's journey when the charts stop being about price and start becoming about reflection. You no longer see candles. You see your own behavior mirrored back at you. The fear, the greed, the hesitation, the rush. It's all there, displayed in green and red. And in that realization, something shifts. You begin to understand that perfect execution isn't just a technical act, it's a psychological transformation. Because every time you execute with discipline, you rewire a small part of your mind. You teach your brain that control matters more than impulse, that process matters more than outcome, and that patience isn't weakness. It's power. That's how real traders are built, not through winning streaks, but through countless moments of controlled execution that reshape who they are inside. You see, the beginner thinks trading is about knowledge, learning patterns, memorizing setups, collecting strategies. But the professional knows trading is about identity. Every trade you take is a vote for the kind of trader you're becoming. When you execute perfectly, even on a losing trade, you reinforce the identity of someone disciplined, patient, precise. When you hesitate, overtrade, or break your rules, you reinforce chaos, emotion, and fear. Over time, these small decisions compound, not in your P&L but in your psychology. Because the truth is, the market doesn't change you, execution does. Each flawless execution, each calm reaction to uncertainty, strengthens the neural pathways that control emotion. You literally reprogram your brain to respond with clarity instead of panic. It's not theory, it's neuroscience. Your brain's reward system starts to shift. At first, it used to crave winning trades. That instant dopamine rush when you're right. But as you evolve, that craving transforms. You stop chasing the dopamine of winning and start craving the satisfaction of executing correctly. You begin to love discipline more than victory. That's the real transformation. That's when trading stops feeling like gambling and starts feeling like mastery. The old you used to celebrate profits, the new you celebrates performance. You begin to realize that money is just feedback, a reflection of how well you behaved under pressure. And that's where the edge multiplies, because now, your focus isn't on, how much did I make, but how precisely did I execute. That one shift turns chaos into calm. When you no longer need the market to validate you, your confidence becomes unshakable. The market's randomness stops affecting your mood because you've detached your worth from your results. That's the day you stop being reactive, the day your emotions finally fall in line behind your process. Think about it, most traders never get here. They stay trapped in cycles of overthinking, emotional reactions, and self-sabotage because they never understood the link between execution and psychology. They think better analysis will fix their problems, but it never does, because trading doesn't reward intelligence, it rewards consistency, and consistency is emotional, not analytical. When you learn to execute without emotion, your brain stops associating uncertainty with danger. It starts associating uncertainty with opportunity. That's a massive rewiring of perception. It's why the same setup that made you panic last year now feels routine. It's why the same volatility that once scared you now excites you. You've trained your nervous system to stay calm under pressure. And that calmness is your competitive edge. Imagine two traders watching the same chart. One is sweating, heart pounding, waiting for confirmation that never comes. The other sits still, breathing steady, finger ready, already knowing exactly what to do because the plan is clear. That's the power of execution psychology. The difference between those two traders isn't experience. It's emotional conditioning. The one who executes flawlessly has spent hundreds of trades practicing control, each time they clicked buy or sell according to plan, even when it hurt. They built emotional muscle memory. That's how discipline becomes automatic. It's no longer a struggle, it's a habit. That's when you know you've crossed over. When precision becomes your instinct, you don't need to try to be disciplined anymore. You simply are, because your brain has learned that peace comes from process, not prediction. That's what traders miss. Perfect execution isn't about perfection, it's about peace. It's not about never losing, it's about never losing yourself. Every great trader knows this. They've all been through that psychological war, the temptation to deviate, the urge to overtrade, the panic after loss, and they all came out the same way by executing through the chaos. That's the bridge every trader must cross. At first, you execute mechanically, forcing yourself to follow rules, reminding yourself not to break them. But with time, the mechanical becomes natural. You no longer resist your emotions. You understand them. You no longer fight the market. You flow with it. Because precision isn't just about timing entries and exits, it's about syncing your psychology with the rhythm of the market. You become patient, observant, detached. The same chart that once looked like noise now feels like music. Patterns, tempo, flow, and your execution becomes the dance. There's no rush, no hesitation, no doubt. Just alignment between your intention and your action. That's mastery. That's execution at its highest form. You've probably heard people say, trading is 80% psychology. But here's the truth they miss. Psychology itself is trained through execution. You don't think your way into discipline, you act your way into it. You build your mindset through repetition. Every correct click reinforces the right neural pattern. Every moment of control strengthens your internal architecture. Over time, your emotional threshold expands. What once triggered panic now feels neutral. What once felt uncertain now feels familiar. And when that happens, when your mind no longer reacts to every tick, every spike, every fake out, that's when your execution becomes lethal. Because your performance no longer depends on conditions. It depends on your control. That's the stage where you stop trading the market and start trading yourself. You learn that the enemy isn't volatility. It's your own inconsistency. The battle isn't outside, it's inside, and perfect execution is the weapon that wins it. It kills hesitation. It kills overreaction. It kills the voice that says, maybe just this one time. Because now, your mind knows better. It's been trained to value precision over pleasure. And that training shows in your results. Not because you've become luckier, but because you've become aligned. You're no longer reacting to emotion, you're responding to data. You're no longer chasing profit, you're cultivating performance. That shift is everything. It's why the top traders in the world sound calm even in chaos. It's why they can take losses with a straight face. Because they know their edge isn't the outcome, it's their behavior. And behavior, once mastered, makes results inevitable. So when you execute perfectly, trade after trade, day after day, you're not just improving your P&L, you're reshaping your identity. You're teaching your brain to operate from clarity instead of confusion, from intention instead of impulse. And eventually, your psychology transforms completely. You start to see the market not as a battlefield, but as a mirror. A mirror that reflects your patience, your control, your ability to stay composed when everyone else is reacting. That's the ultimate evolution. Because the trader who can execute perfectly under emotional pressure, who can stay calm when others panic, patient when others rush, that trader doesn't just make money, they make mastery. They create a state of mind so stable that no loss can shake it and no wind can inflate it. That's the point where your trading becomes art. The chart becomes your canvas, execution becomes your brushstroke, and precision becomes your signature. Every move deliberate, every decision disciplined, every moment aligned with purpose. That's when you realize the truth. You were never fighting the market, you were training your mind. And through perfect execution, you didn't just learn to trade, you learned to master yourself.